This is just a preview of the video that you're about to watch. What you're going to do is see how I set up my layout as you see here on the screen. We're going to put a game object onto the ground layer, and we're going to scale that object out so that we can build on it. If you already know how to do that, you can skip ahead. Another important thing that we're going to do is create a tree prefab so that we can use that as our first building prototype. If you already know how to do those two things, create an object and put it on a layer, and then create a tree or something else to prototype and make that into a prefab, then you can skip this video. Open Unity Hub and start a new 3D project. I'm naming mine How to Build in Unity, and I'm putting this on Unity 2020.3. You could probably use all the way down to Unity 5.6. There's nothing in this project that would cause any obsolescence errors or anything like that. To save time and get a better workflow, I'm going to go ahead and put my inspector window right next to my hierarchy window, and then I'm going to put the project folder and the console down under the scene and game windows. These 30 seconds of setup are going to save us a lot of time in the long run. Now you can see that I've saved my layout as easy inspect. I can quickly switch back between the default and the easy inspect, and all you have to do is press that save layout button. We're going to do a little bit of scene setup here, so I'm going to go ahead and bring in a cube. You could bring in a plane, but I'm just going to use a cube in this case. I'm going to name it ground, and I'm going to change its layer from default to ground. So that means we're going to have to add a layer. We're going to add that layer ground, and then we're going to have to go back to that cube and make sure that we put it on the ground layer. I'm going to scale this out so that we've got plenty of room to work with so that we can build all over the place. I'm not real happy with the lighting, and in 2020.3 the lighting button is down there at the bottom right. So I'm going to go ahead and instead, because it's not auto generating, I have to click that generate lighting button. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to bring in some new folders. So I want to have a nice little ground material here. I'll probably create something that's brown, and then I'm going to create a few objects just to give the scene some ambiance. So I'm just hitting that ground I just hit the ground with that material, and now I'm going to give it some color. All right, put a nice little shade of brown here, and then we're going to change the metallic and the smoothness so that it's not so shiny. Right, the ground, the dirt is not going to be shiny like that. That's probably the right color for us to be able to see everything. And now we're going to go ahead and create a tree. So I'm creating a parent object for that tree, and I'm going to reset its transform so it's right there in the middle of everything. I'm going to bring in a cylinder so that can act as the trunk of the tree. I'm going to remove its colliders, and I'm going to go ahead and scale that so that it's a thinner trunk, and then I'm going to move it up so that it's even with the ground. So that, yeah, okay. So right there, you can see that that's even with the ground. We're going to go ahead and bring in a placeholder for the leaves. I'm going to take a sphere and bring that up, and I'm just going to increase the Y until it's above our cylinder, and then I'm going to scale that out a little bit so it's a little bit thicker. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Now it's a little bit too big. Okay, what we're going to do is go ahead and create another material. We can bring in brown and green so that we can put the brown one obviously on the trunk, and then the green one onto the leaves. I like to give even materials appropriate names so that I know that I can't. Okay, so for example, if I were to name bark brown, then I would say I would take a door and maybe use the same material that I'm using for the tree on the door. And the problem is when I want to change that door later, then I'm also changing the tree, and that's not what I want. So I'm making sure that I name these materials properly so that I can not have that cross-reference problem. All right, so let's create another folder, and we'll call that prefabs. We're going to go ahead and prefab that tree, but first let's put a collider on it so that it's so that we don't intersect objects with the tree. Okay, and we don't intersect the tree on top of other objects. Now you can see that there's a little bit of a problem because my parent, the parent to the tree, that parent game object is below the ground, and I don't want that. I want it to be even with the ground. So I'm making sure that this is reset and above the floor. What I'm actually doing here is making the ground go down, which maybe isn't the most desirable thing. So I'll probably put that at, instead of -1, probably put it at 0.5. And then I'll move the parts of the tree down, because now there you can see that the tree parent is perfectly set up. And now we have to adjust that cylinder to where its position is 0.5, I think, right? And we'll move the tree leaves down just a little bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now we need to make sure that they're zeroed out on top of the tree parent's position, and now we can prefab that. That's moving around properly as we would expect it to move around, so let's prefab that.